UFOs over Congress? Exactly 12 hours before lawmakers hold a bombshell hearing on UFOs, strange lights fly above the Capitol. Seen by 9 witnesses, 4 come forward with their story. A former official for the National Science Foundation, a U.S. intelligence analyst, a multi-billion-dollar investment manager, and a world-famous UFO experiencer. It's 1952 all over again, the night UFOs returned to the Capitol. Hey everyone, welcome to The Good Trouble Show. I'm Matt Ford. On September 8th, 2025, 9 people watched something extraordinary, a string of glowing orbs over the United States Capitol. Several of those witnesses hold PhDs, including Dr. Donna Roberts, the former deputy chief scientist for the International Space Station. Now, today, 4 of those 9 will tell their stories, one at a time, so you can judge for yourself how shockingly similar their accounts are. Our first guest has overseen multi-billion-dollar investment portfolios for top-tier Fortune 500 companies. He is the principal for Pacific Gas and Electric, managing PG&E's $30 billion investment program. Our interview with Erik Zidek. Erik, how have you been? Welcome back to The Good Trouble Show.
Matt, it's a pleasure. I'm doing well, and yourself? It's always good to see you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you for returning. Hopefully you didn't have too bad a time on the last episode, so we're super glad you are back. And we are here to speak about this UAP sighting above the Capitol. But I want to start at the beginning. Walk us through the day right up until this anomalous thing happened above the Capitol building.
Yeah, absolutely. So prior to the event, all of us were at the pre-hearing at the Republican Capitol Hill Club with, great group of eclectic individuals. And when we left, we had the intention of going with Mr. Bledsoe to see orbs in the sky. And I thought, well, that's a great time. I didn't really have any expectations. We had several scientists with, great credentials, multiple PhDs. And so I want to say it was about a group of half a dozen of us. And so we ended up walking a little bit and settled at the Library of Congress on some steps close to, I believe, the Neptune Fountain. And we were facing west with the Capitol on the horizon. And that's where we decided to settle.
From the moment you first noticed something unusual, walk us through what happened until it was just over, just sort of what you personally saw and heard.
Sure. Chris Bledsoe did his spiritual thing with the group. And then I would say maybe a few minutes later, we had some type of phenomena going on for about 5 to 10 minutes. Chris's assistant pointed something out in the sky, and, it looked like some type of luminous small spherical object. I couldn't really discern any more structural characteristics. It was something that seemed to be reflecting light. So you wouldn't think at, about 10:15 p.m. Washington, D.C. downtown that you would, see a bird or something like that. The trajectory was more of like a downward sweeping motion. So, my first impression was, okay, maybe this is a drone. I had not really been aware of like the exact restrictions on DC airspace and so forth, but it looked very artificial in origin, just in terms of the broad movement. I would say the group was pretty jubilant and very surprised. And then the next moment, as I was trying to record, I noticed I had some type of odd phone malfunction. So there was some type of lock on my phone. So I've owned an iPhone almost 20 years or so. And so I could only do some type of, emergency call and, turn my phone on and off. I still couldn't get through. And apparently in trying to research this error, it's not something that's user induced. It's something if you have like a SIM card issue or if there's an issue with the cell tower, for instance. And in any event, as I was getting startled with that, I noticed on the corner of my eye just some transient light phenomena on the right. And, I think it turned out just to be a meteor, very bright red. And I would say that was probably one of the most prominent ones I've seen. And, I didn't really know what it was until Sarah Gamm pointed that out a little bit afterward. And so I think we were just very surprised about this. We were looking at this for about 5 to 10 minutes. And, we went through like the iterations of, is this a drone, trying to look at the prosaic explanations. And, it was very anomalous. So, you have a number of events happening, Chris Bledsoe does his thing with the group. We see some type of white orb, what I believe was like a white orb phenomena, in addition to this comet flash and a phone malfunction. So, I can't say any of those were exactly correlated, but at the very minimal, that was an interesting turn of events and interesting sequence at the very least.
Erik, let's focus only on sort of like what it looked like, how it appeared to you. Describe the shape, the color, the brightness, the size. Did it seem to be emanating light as opposed to reflecting light? Let's say like a bird were to fly over the Capitol, the body of that bird, the white body of that bird, if it were a seagull or whatnot, would be reflecting as opposed to emitting light. Give us as much detail as you can as far as what these things looked like.
I believe it did, even though I couldn't really discern any structural characteristics. I mean, it did look very spherical. And there's probably some criticism just from the initial video that, you could look at wings and so forth, and that's why it might be a bird. That wasn't the case at all. With the naked eye, you couldn't see anything like that. It did look like it was emanating light. It came in really faint, but as it was going through its downward trajectory, it did look luminescent. So just keep in mind, too, this was a very cloudy night, and you had a few stars being able to peek through, and the luminosity actually seemed to match the stars as it was kind of moving around a little bit, too. And there was a moment where maybe there was a few more that were pretty faint in the background, too, which I believe Sarah's video captured. But beyond that, it was more of like a spherical dot with no other characteristics, no, wings, any type of propulsion and so forth, just with a very, very odd trajectory that really wasn't consistent with birds. And, I've seen a lot of birds just being in California, once in a while bird watching, and it didn't appear to be the case.
How did it move in terms of, did it have a flight pattern? Was it straight, circling, hovering, or something else?
It had a really wide sweeping motion, and it was pretty far off. And I think just the distance that it covered in that short time horizon just seemed like it was too fast for a bird. There were a couple times where it seemed like it started and stopped for a moment at a couple points. It did sort of like a downward figure eight pattern. At one point, it was obscured by a tree. But beyond those really wide sweeping motions, that definitely just looked like something that was more of a drone, just with these really wide paths at a distance, and how much it was covered and the speed.
In terms of observed acceleration and deceleration, did it appear to perform in ways that you wouldn't expect, say, like a prosaic drone or a bird to behave?
A little bit. I wouldn't say there's anything where, there was some type of hypersonic or transmedium type thing, within that framework. But in terms of just observing drones, they, like a regular hobby drone is going to go a lot slower. This seemed to just cover a much wider distance, and just the motion just didn't really seem consistent. So I thought, if something like this is prosaic and someone else out there has camera footage, this would be, maybe some type of military drone. If we had to go that route and speculate, it just didn't seem consistent with like the normal flight path where you would expect something to go a little bit slow and hover. It was just kind of covering too much, of a flight path.
In terms of its acceleration and deceleration, was there anything anomalous in that sort of motion path?
There was an aspect where it seemed like it did stop, or it went pretty close to stopping at one point. And I believe that was when there was like a few other spherical objects that manifested a little bit too. I would say it was pretty brief when it actually stopped. I would say it was kind of maybe went to like a slow roll, but I think that's something that would be like more of a drone that would be hovering. And it did do that for a brief period of time during its downward trajectory.
Understood. And did you hear anything? Did it make any noise? You mentioned, of course, the effect on your phone, but were there any sort of kind of environmental effects?
No noise. And so nothing there, beyond the street noise and so forth. I think we were pretty far away. So at this point, it was really more of a visual phenomenon just between that and the whole comets. The actual phone issue happened, probably within 15 to 30 seconds when I saw this object. And, that continued through the whole duration. So I actually didn't get any type of recording. I mean, I'm not aware if that happened to other people's phone, but, you're putting like, these three things, three or four sequence of events happening. And, I would say it's just a very strange coincidence at the very least.
For sure. And Erik, in that moment, did you feel anything in terms of like, did it feel threatening, neutral, was the whole experience positive for you?
I would say it's positive, and that's probably more of a subjective experience. The group, I think, was just jubilant. They were having a good time. I think people had a good time just coming back from the pre-hearing party. I wouldn't say anything beyond where there was some type of external stimuli or whatnot, or some type of transmission. So I would just say it was just kind of the general vibe of the group, and people were excited just seeing something out there.
Indeed, and I can tell you, listening to the other interviews that we've done about this with the individuals that I mentioned earlier, there's pretty much a commonality of experience. It certainly sounds like UAP to me. I want to ask you, did it appear as if these things were directly over the Capitol building? Could you discern the distance in relation to the other buildings?
I think it was a little bit further out, but not too far off. It was the way I was looking at it. We were facing west toward the Capitol building, and it was a little bit higher and farther, out to the left, a little bit higher up. So I would say it was like directly over it. However, it was directly in our field of view, very clearly. In addition to that other meteor event that happened earlier, too, very, very much directly in our field of view.
Well, Erik, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely want to have you back on the show, and really appreciate you sharing what your personal experience was of this clearly anomalous event.
Great. Thanks for having me. One thing I'll add, we've been in this game for a while too. So, you have just an iPhone video. So you're going to have, the skeptic type people going. And, of course, you're not, I don't expect people to believe that on face value. But I think, really the takeaway for me is, you have highly credentialed people that see something out there, and actually being there, you're seeing something that's different than just what the video captures too. So, I definitely think it was worth sharing as well. And, I think we could get more information on that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Erik, we'll see you soon. And thanks for joining us once again on the Good Trouble Show.
My pleasure.
Our next guest is the founding partner of American Deep Tech, a deep technology investment firm. She previously co-chaired the U.S. National Research Agenda in Digital Assets with the White House Office of Science and Technology, and led interagency efforts on space economy and commercialization alongside NASA. She also served as program director at the National Science Foundation, focusing on digital assets, space tech, energy, and clean tech. Our interview with Dr. Anna Brady-Estevez. Dr. Brady-Estevez, how are you? Thanks for joining us. This is your second appearance on the Good Trouble Show. How have you been?
I've been doing great, Matt. Thank you so much. It's great to see you, and really appreciate your show and all you're doing to share information with people.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So before we get into the actual event, sort of lead us up as far as like what happened before, where you were. Was there anything weird that happened during the day or in the days prior? Walk us up right to the point where this anomalous event occurred.
A few days prior, we had plans to meet Chris Bledsoe, who's probably, in terms of openly, I would say he's probably the leading observational scientist that we're aware of openly in the world right now. And so we went down there to really engage in that observational science. And that first night we got down there too late to the beach, so we weren't able to get together with Chris, but we saw a tremendous number and quality in terms of really interesting orbs. We may have seen transmedium activity as well. So we were seeing kind of pops of light and semicircular halos over the water, and got some very interesting videos of orbs. So what I would say is sometimes these this phenomena, this technology, whatever it is, it does present to varying degrees. So there are cases where something, you'll look at it, and for a very long time it'll look like a star, but there'll be something that's just a bit off, and then it'll start to move. It might make erratic movements, and then some of these transition into changing colors and pulsating. And we did see some very interesting, including, capturing some on videos, that pulsating behavior and that color change behavior that some of the people that we were, formally working with in their personal capacity, saw. So I guess seeing that, I've also been active in both briefing Congress, and I've been fortunate to receive information from members of the House and the Senate on this topic. So we had been reached out to and invited to the Capitol Hill Club. I've been very impressed by the earnestness with which a number of representatives have really taken this to heart to try to share more information with the American people. So I was asked to invite experts or people in this field in. So probably invited about 10 or 20 leading people in the field, people from across the interagency, people from the private sector. And so Congressman Burleson and Congresswoman Luna held a reception at the Capitol Hill Club, very grateful for their leadership. This was in advance of the UAP hearing that members of Congress led, in early September. I think it was September 9th. And so this was the evening prior. Lots of good engagement at that event. And in those hours, it was about almost 12 hours to the dot before the UAP hearing, which brought forth considerable information, whistleblowers, and showed that willing leadership of members of the U.S. government to share more that they could. We said, all right, it's the end of the evening. It's about 10 o'clock. I just had a feeling, let's go take a walk, because many of these people have seen things. Like I said, Chris sees it on an almost daily basis. So the chances are he steps out at night, he's going to potentially see something interesting. That doesn't always happen in city environments. But so I kind of convinced people, let's go for a brief walk together. We went for a brief walk, and we were looking at the beautiful Capitol building, the People's House, and we began to engage in prayer. And that's where shortly things became much more interesting than even what's normally interesting, which is looking at our beautiful nation's capital.
Okay, so let's start from that moment when you noticed something unusual. Walk us through what happened until it was over. Just, sort of what you personally saw, heard, experienced.
Well, so in terms of missing out a little bit, I will say that so we were standing facing the Capitol, so kind of the side that is at the visitor center and the Library of Congress. And so the lights are pretty strong from that side of the street facing us. So I actually didn't see the initial activity. So I was really thankful that Sarah Gamm was able to catch, one of those earlier ones with the figure 8. I'm actually the voice saying, where is it? And we were looking at so many different trees. So I was saying, all right, can we please establish a grid, of this tree is +1, +2. So when you say it's over the tree, I know which one to look at. So, a number of the people there were seeing the orbs immediately, and that was captured on footage, and then I saw some of the later ones. So saw, and my voice is audible, I'm one of the ones that's kind of moving back and forth across both sides of the Capitol. And so saw some of that activity, which was fairly continuous for a period. But as I said, I saw a portion of those orbs. And then it was interesting that a bit later in the evening, probably right before we headed out of the area, we decided to come together again in prayer. And we haven't told this part of the story thoroughly always, but so we started the nine of us saying our Father, the Lord's Prayer. And as soon as we got to our Father, and we're looking at the left-hand side of the Capitol, there was this burst of, it looks like a ball, kind of, similar to a ball of fire, like a small sun.
Wow.
And then it had a long paintbrush-like streak that the whole thing was visible at one time. So you've got the ball here, and then you've got the tail here, almost like a cartoon comet. And so that was going on for, that was just very brief, so probably, if it was a second or 2 seconds, it was, kind of, it's like a flash, and that was very distinctive.
Now, focusing only on what it looked like, or the various instances, so you just spoke about the one that sort of appeared like sort of a cartoon comet. Describe in sort of greater detail the shape, color, the brightness, the size. Was, for instance, the quality of the light. Did it feel any different than, say, like if it were a seagull or something going through the Capitol lights, and the light is reflecting off of an object? Did it, were these things emitting light, et cetera? Just dig into that a little bit more.
Well, so they were certainly emitting light, and I do have a lot of experience with seagulls because I grew up by the coast. So I'm kind of, I appreciate that people try to tie things into whatever their prior experience is, but there was no beaks. I don't see anything that that in any way confers anything similar to a bird. So nothing of the sort. I mean, really more. And I guess the thing that was interesting was that particular one that looked more, like we said, kind of a cartoon comet. It was not high in the sky. I mean, it was more like it was coming across the frame. I remember it as coming, if we're looking at a tree, it's more coming across for a very brief trajectory. And so yes, that one, the coloring was different. And I've also got to say, this was a very short period of time. So that, I would say, is more of like a goldish orange, as opposed to, the whiter, kind of bright light that we that are captured in the videos. But these orbs and UAP phenomena do present under a wide range of colors. So we saw kind of more of a subset that evening, in that white to yellowish orangey, and then I believe some of the participants saw some red as well.
How did it move? Sort of, let's talk about sort of its kind of motion behavior. Again, the one with the comet with the tail, that was sort of an arc, but the ones that were over the Capitol, what sort of maneuvers were they engaging in? Were they moving in a straight line, circling, hovering, or something else?
So I saw a subset. So I would say kind of more the changing of directions, the circling. I believe there was a point where they're hovering. So I saw a subset. I've also heard others say that there was some very jagged motions. I probably saw a smaller subset in this particular instance than some of the other participants.
So some people saw them, and then and some people didn't, or how did that? Because that's sort of how it's.
So like, as is shown in the video. So I think the first video that I was probably the one who was having the most difficulty seeing them at first, because it's really bright light coming from that direction, and then I didn't know where to look. So, people are saying, oh, it's over the tree, and we're looking at a large number of trees,
Sure.
So which one type thing. So, you can hear in the video the voice saying, where is it? Can we establish a tree order? And that's me not seeing that one. So I was grateful to see it subsequently in the video. But, the other one that was kind of coming around the Capitol, you hear my voice saying, "Oh wow, I'm the wow voice on that one." So a range of different behavior.
Did you hear anything or notice any effects on your phone, electronics, anything in sort of the environment?
I heard other people had phone things. I usually try to be in the moment and not as engaged with my phone. So I wasn't actually, and to be frank, yeah, I had found out actually that a few days prior, the two people that I was with at the beach on that first night, they were getting really crisp videos and my phone wasn't doing anything of use. So I think I haven't really worked out how to get good imagery. So I didn't even try with my phone. So I was not paying attention to that.
Did you, sort of like, what did you feel? Did it feel threatening, neutral, or positive? You mentioned that everyone was in prayer. So how did the phenomena sort of make you feel when it appeared?
And I want to be respectful that I'm sure people can experience a range of things, but here we were, and I think there's been some questions about what level of control should be exerted, over this whole field. And so I think it's really important to say what you have here is a number of Americans who are taking on their constitutional rights, right? So prayer, peaceful assembly, and freedom of speech. So the things that we enjoy doing as Americans and that are in our constitutional rights. So upon, just straightforward, and these are the prayers, some of the most common prayers people do every day. It's not some ornate psionic type procedure. These orbs and other phenomena are arriving. And I will say my experience with this whole range of everything has only been positive. So I have never once felt threatened. I think, sometimes people can get nervous if there's some ambiguity, and or they're alone. But I would say people were really happy, and it felt like it was very affirmative to what U.S. leadership was attempting to do the next day. So here we have, the Congress is really trying to move forward on UAP disclosure, and they're talking about some really interesting events in some cases that happened many, many years ago and some more recent. And so this is literally, while they're trying to engage in that investigation and that information sharing, that it appears there's something that's consistent and fortifying, basically, I don't want to say showing up for them, but showing up for people just in the hours prior of them undertaking, that very earnest and serious, and I think valuable act of sharing more with the American people and with the world to the extent possible. And I would say that my understanding of U.S. technology is that if the United States sees something that is threatening, it's going to be, we have the ability to take action on things. So I also can't imagine that this was seen as threatening by any other entities that might have had it. Although, I certainly can't speak for them.
Now, Dr. Brady-Estevez, I understand that there was a mutual friend of ours who has also been on the show that was witness to this. Who is that?
I think, there might be more people who you would know, but Dr. Donna Roberts, so recent deputy chief scientist of the International Space Station, so the leading, multi-decade presence in low Earth orbit in space. So Donna's recently come in as our chief scientist at American Deep Tech, our investment firm. She was there with us as one of the leaders that was brought to meet with members of Congress and others in this space. And so she was there and she authorized use of her name, as one of the witnesses. And we've actually spoken to this. We had been invited to be keynote speakers at a NASA conference a couple days later, and we actually played the videos to really share it with more of the innovators.
Well, Dr. Brady-Estevez, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. We, on our program, are going to have some of the other individuals who witnessed the same event and get their their account of all of this. But thank you so much for joining us. So
Thank
glad
you.
you
Really appreciate
came
it.
back on the show. I'm glad we didn't scare you off. You came back a second time. So we very much appreciate it. And just what an amazing experience. And especially considering the timing of it, at 10 o'clock at night, the day before the UAP hearing. I think that's pretty amazing.
The day before the UAP hearing, and for some people, across the country, every day or every other day. So we just see that there's a lot more that's visible, and it's really a time to move from disclosure to discernment of, individuals just saying, what have you seen? What are you open to? Because more and more of this is becoming apparent, and people need to judge for themselves what they think it may or may not be and to what extent they're engaged. We work with people that are attempting to understand this more and also to build out the advanced technologies that are associated with this.
I love it. It is truly part of our complex universe. Well, Dr. Brady-Estevez, thanks for joining us and look forward to having you back.
See you. Thank you so much.
Our final two interviews are next. But folks, over half of you watching right now are not subscribers. So please help us grow our show by becoming a subscriber to our channel and hit the little notification bell so you will always be up to date on our latest shows. We are also on all the major social media platforms. You can find us on X at Good Trouble Show and everywhere else at The Good Trouble Show. You can also find us wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Search for The Good Trouble Show with Matt Ford. And if you would like to become a supporter of The Good Trouble Show, please join us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Good Trouble Show. Your support allows us to keep bringing you great guests like we have today. Now, with that out of the way, our next guest holds a Bachelor of Science in Astrophysics, a Master of Science in Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction. She has served across the intelligence community as an imagery analyst and scientist, including roles at ODNI's National Counterproliferation and Biosecurity Center, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and the Pentagon. Her work has spanned nuclear counterproliferation strategy, the Mosul Dam Task Force, and the UAP Task Force, where she combined her scientific and imagery expertise. She now serves as a scientist with the Army's 10-Cap office. Our interview with Sarah Gamm. Sarah, thanks for joining us. This is your second appearance on the Good Trouble Show. Welcome back. How have you been?
I've been good, as every year brings challenges. That's been mine this way as well. So I think overall good, and I'm very happy to be back. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome. Now, our last episode, we actually live streamed the UAP hearing, and at the end of our sort of analysis of the hearing, we showed the videos that you took of these orbs right above the Capitol, and we read a statement from you and Anna Brady-Estevez. So, firstly, thank you for allowing us to be the first one to share this experience and show the video, and that's what we're here, of course, to talk about and dig into it a little bit more with a little bit more detail. And we have on the show some of the other individuals that experienced this same event that you were part of. So what I want to do is I want you to sort of walk us through the day. Like let's start at the beginning. Walk us through what occurred during the day right up until the anomalous experience occurred.
Yeah, during the day, evening, went to the pre-UAP hearing gathering. Some people have called it a meeting. I like to call it a gathering because it was a lot of like-minded souls trying to push for disclosure. And it was Representatives Burleson and Luna hosted it. So we were at the Capitol Hill Club just beside Capitol Hill, and we had a great gathering. And towards the end of the night, there was just a few of us that were left. And this UAP community is very small, so a handful of us have become really good friends over time. And so we all didn't really want to go home yet. And with Chris Bledsoe there, he offered to walk us to the mall and for us to skywatch. And so we walked a few blocks to the Library of Congress, and we were standing on the sidewalk there. And that's when we started seeing some objects.
Okay, so let's pick it up from that point. From the moment you first noticed something unusual, walk us through what happened until it was over. Just sort of, what you personally saw and heard and felt. What was your experience?
Yeah. First off, the experience was absolutely incredible. I have seen orbs previously. I have also summoned some in before, and the maneuvers that these made were not like anything I've seen before, including my time on supporting the UAP task force. So this was truly anomalous for me, and so almost immediately, so Chris went into his I call it a prayer. I think he calls it a prayer too, but I don't want to take his words from him. But he starts with a prayer and intention of a peaceful, friendly gathering there, and so we all kind of chimed in and started saying amen or a little bit, but it was. I don't even know if he was through his entire prayer before we started seeing something. And he was already looking the direction that things were coming. And so we were standing at the Library of Congress and we were looking like west, almost a little bit northwest. So it was right over the Capitol building, kind of towards the White House as well. And yeah, it was amazing. So at first we started seeing a figure eight, but it was a vertical figure eight doing this, and then it would speed up and slow down and fade in and fade out. And then I also a few of us saw what was a step pattern, and so it would something like the orb would be still, and then accelerate very quickly, stop, and then drop, and so it made like a step pattern, and at the very end, before it faded away, it accelerated greatly. And there was a gold orange streak behind it. That was in a linear movement, not like a meteorite that would have an arc to it. And that's when my brain went, check flight radar, get your camera out, do all the things. And so I checked flight radar at that point. Knew we were looking towards Reagan Airport, DCA, but I anticipated to see some flight traffic there, but those airplanes, we know what aircraft looks like, right? Especially when they're going to land or take off. So it's
Sure.
it's pretty horizontal movement, and so then I mentioned drones. We were talking about drones. I think you could even hear it in one of the videos. We mentioned drones, and I'm like, but no drones are going to be over these buildings here. If there were, we'd be hearing sirens. We would see this on the news. Plus, they weren't maneuvering like drones, and so yeah, quickly went through all the things that I normally would, trying to say like this is something of U.S. origin, or a drone or whatever, a bird, and obviously ruled out parallax pretty quickly because of my eyeballs. It's not a video. Um, yeah, it was pretty incredible. So then by the time I recorded, it was 10:16 p.m. And it was doing the orb was doing the vertical figure eight pattern again, and then it would kind of fade in and fade out, and most of the rest of the patterns we saw were this figure eight, and it was just, it was incredible, and the experience with such amazing people that I know not all of them want their names out there, but every single one of us are some sort of scientists or somebody that wouldn't just jump to conclusions that this was an orb. We are kind of like-minded people, and for all of us to experience this. And one of the guys, his phone malfunctioned, it went into emergency mode only, so he couldn't get videos. And another person, I think, also had their phone kind of mess up, and so somehow I ended up being one of the only people who got videos of the few minutes that I did.
Now, we just had on Dr. Anna Brady-Estevez, who, for her, this experience seemed to be very spiritual, very religious. Was it the same way for you?
I appreciate that. I don't agree with the religious aspect. I consider myself spiritual now and not religious. I did grow up in a very religious household. I still pray and I still worship, but things are a little different now that I've gone down the spirituality route. And I have summoned in orbs before, and I've had many encounters over the years, and it's never been through a religious way or through a religious prayer. I didn't have to say the Lord's Prayer. But when I do initiate trying to contact them or try to summon in orbs, I do have the intention of love. So, what is prayer and what is religion? The foundation to all of that is love and a friendly encounter and a friendly intent. So, I do see the spirituality connection, but I unfortunately not quite on board with the dominance of the religious aspect that some have encountered. But I respect it though, because that's what they've felt and that's what they've the encounters that they've had. So I appreciate it so much, but I also understand that no matter what the encounter is, the foundation is from love.
Absolutely amazing. I want to focus on what it looked like, what they looked like. How would you describe the orbs in terms of shape, color, brightness, size, also the quality of the light? You know, like, let's say, for instance, a bird that would be flying through the lights illuminating the Capitol dome. The bird would not be emitting light, it would be simply reflecting it. Talk about exactly how these things look like in terms of shape, color, brightness, size, and quality of them.
Yeah, you're actually completely spot on. I have used that phrase, that these orbs emit light, they don't reflect it. And you could tell because like when it would fade in and out, it was a source of light. It was letting us see and also like, feel emotions type thing from it. And I'm so sorry, my cat is meowing.
Oh, that's
And he's
okay.
probably going to join us here in a second.
Oh,
Um, but you could tell it wasn't a bird reflecting, because if it was a bird reflecting, we wouldn't see it as brightly or as much as we would. We would also have seen, when you zoom into the videos, you would see like the wings movement or something like that. And I've also in my time on the task force, I learned quite a bit about birds, more than I ever thought I would. And I could truly say that was not movement by a bird. And I appreciate the people that think it might be, because it did look anomalous, but we were there in person and saw it for 10 to 15, close to 15 minutes, I think. And I know it was over 10 minutes because of the timestamp on my videos. But it was a, a light source and not reflectance. Um, and the movements were very smooth and very almost like it was kind of gliding. So that was interesting too, for the sudden figure eight movement, for it to be so smooth and just like almost in a playful maneuver. But when I saw the step pattern, that was really what tipped me off to notice like there's nothing that could do this like very sudden, very quick movement, and then the acceleration that it did at the end. So the color of the orb was white. It was white for most of the time, and a couple of different moments we did see. Well, at least me. I can't speak for everybody because like some folks weren't seeing it at first, and others saw more at the end when I didn't. But there were at least two instances that I saw where when it accelerated very quickly, it was like a gold orange glow, like a streak, kind of like when you see a meteorite and there's a tail behind it. It was kind of like that, but it would be in a linear pattern. And then towards the end of the actual event, and by event, it's observing the orbs. We did start saying a prayer again, and we saw one last like gold orange streak. And then eventually, for me, this is like one of the biggest moments in it. Well, not biggest because the whole event was big, but a big moment was at the very end. There was actually a meteorite that we saw that had a red tail streaking behind it. So the meteorite arced. And so that's when I also knew, I just knew in my heart that this was it. Like they were letting us see this meteorite. So my astrophysics brain was also able to differentiate these orb streaks versus an actual meteorite. And so when a meteorite streaks red, it's high in oxygen or nitrogen. If it was a deep red, it would have been more nitrogen prevalent in it. So it was beautiful, and to see this right over the Capitol. And I don't think everyone saw the meteorite as well, because some folks were talking, and at one point we decided to try to take a group photo to see if we could capture the orb in the photo as well. We got an airplane at that point in one of the photos, so we didn't get an orb, but yeah, from start to finish, it was right around 15 minutes, and we stood out there for quite a while longer, chit chatting and just seeing if we could see more things. And finally we're all a little tired, so we called it a night right around 11 p.m.
Yeah, that's just absolutely amazing. And again, the movement that you observed, that kind of movement in terms of the acceleration and deceleration, that is not something that, let's say, a military drone that would possibly be floating above the Capitol would be able to perform.
No, I don't think so. I mean, even looking at flight radar, I'm well aware that that app doesn't contain all flight information in the sky at that moment. So, let's say there were drones out there. National Guard is very prevalent in DC at the moment. So maybe they had a drone out. I still don't know of any drone that could stop, start, drop altitude, make those very quick movements the way that we observe them.
Amazing. And again, I would point out that you are an intelligence analyst and an astrophysicist, so you really know what you're looking at.
I hope so. Not all the time. I'm definitely wrong once in a while, but in this case, there were too many of us together to discount what we saw and what we observed, and just appreciate every moment.
Yeah. Now, Sarah, in the moment, what were your sort of feelings? Did you feel threatened, neutral, positive? Sort of, how would you characterize the whole experience for you?
That's a great question, Matt. So after probably about the 10-minute mark, and the orbs were so prevalent for so long, we all just kind of started chit-chatting, and I didn't want to invade Chris Bledsoe's energy and what he does and his procedure. So I asked him, I said, "Can I tap into this energy? Is that okay?" And of course, he didn't care. Maybe he felt it was silly that I asked, but I still wanted, ethics, right? And so I tapped into the energy, and it was so playful and it was so fun. It was as if they were having just as good of a time as us. And I don't know who they are, but it was such beautiful, loving, playful energy that I mean, I'm smiling again thinking about it, because it was just so beautiful and such a genuine feeling that was radiating from the sky. And in that moment too, I realized how historic what we were seeing and what were observing, and just like the historic moment of it compared to the 1952 sighting over the Capitol building.
Amazing. Yeah, and again, when you look at who was there, you've got yourself as an intelligence analyst, Dr. Brady-Estevez, who we've interviewed, Chris Bledsoe, and Erik Zidek, and others, and also Dr. Donna Roberts. I mean, it just these are serious people in their career. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story and the video, which we, of course, were playing while you were describing the incident. Really something else. But thanks for joining us, and look forward to having you back on. Maybe we can talk about some sci and paranormal stuff once you come back.
Oh, that would be so much fun. I would love that. Thank you.
Our final interview is a UFO experiencer and author of UFO of God, the extraordinary true story of Chris Bledsoe. He has drawn attention from scientists, government agencies, and religious groups. He continues to report ongoing orb and spiritual phenomena at his home. Our interview with Chris Bledsoe. Mr. Bledsoe, thanks for joining us. We met for the first time at last year's Contact in the Desert, and I had such an amazing time speaking with you, and you showed me videos of the many orbs that you encounter, and it's so great to have you on the show. So welcome. How have you been?
Thank you for having me, Matt. And I've been great, busy, traveling all over the country, and yeah, running like crazy.
Exactly. I saw you on Skinwalker Ranch. That was really great. I'm a huge fan of that show and what they're doing over there. And I saw you on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch as well, where they came out to your property, and yeah, it was just amazing. But we're here to talk about the orb experience that occurred over the Capitol Hill building the night before the UAP hearing. So let's start with just sort of what happened during the day. We'll go right up to the point where the anomalous experience happened. Just give us a bit of background on what occurred during the day leading up to that point.
Well, basically, I'd have to back up 2 days because I got a call from Dr. Brady and some of her friends, along with Erik Zidek, which I think you're going to have him on. And we met up in Wilmington to spend a couple days together observing the ocean and orbs. And while we were there, I got a call, can you come to the Capitol Hill Club for a reception with Congressman Burleson and Anna and another group of people. And so I left Anna, Dr. Brady, and her group. They drove back to D.C. I drove home Sunday night, jumped a flight Monday morning, and flew up to so my day was traveling to DC, and we got there just about 2 hours before I had to be at the Capitol Hill Club. And so yeah, we were observing orbs for 2 days before that. So and it was just an amazing event, completely amazing. We went into the reception and had a great time meeting everybody. I think Jaime Maussan was there, and Stephen Greer, and Danny Sheehan, the whole group. And afterwards, we went out for a little stroll towards the Library of Congress. So that was kind of my day.
Okay, great. So let's pick it up right at that point. So you're out with this group, and you see what?
Well, we walked up to the Library of Congress where we could face the Capitol building and the White House. You could see it off in the distance, and everybody wanted to see orbs. And so they asked if I would go with them, and it was some very prominent scientists there, which you know several of them, some I can't mention, and said a little prayer, and here it come. And for 45 minutes, there were 3 orbs all in total, if you look carefully, and they would appear and disappear, and just basically, they owned Washington for about 45 minutes there.
Walk us through exactly like what they were doing. So you're standing up there and you're looking towards the thing. What's the first thing you see?
Well, other than the lights from DC, you have all these massive, big, round street lights everywhere. So if you see the video, we're all doing this, trying to block the light. So one of the guys in the group saw it coming. So it's coming from towards the Capitol building towards us, and it was faint. And then it got closer and it flashed. You could see it get brighter for a minute, and then it took off and it vanished, and it reappeared, and it began to do figure eights sort of around the Capitol, and then it would vanish again. And the whole crowd went, "Oh my God, this was amazing." And so I said, "Well, let me show you. We'll get it to come back. Hopefully we'll say another little prayer." And it was the most amazing thing, because we had people from the Catholic Church, from the Protestant faith, and from the Jewish faith all together saying a little prayer together. And every time we did, here it would come back. And so for 45 minutes, 7 or 8 times, it would appear on cue and do its thing. And it was an amazing thing.
I want to focus on what it looked like. Like, how would you describe it? The shape, the color, the brightness, the size. As I mentioned earlier with Anna Brady-Estevez, like if a bird is flying above the Capitol with the lights coming up, the bird isn't emitting light. It's right. The white body reflecting it. Talk about exactly what these things look like.
Well, I have several videos of those. In fact, when we were at the Psy Games earlier this year, we had one that appeared over the hotel, and it appeared to have wings at times, and then at times it didn't, and it flew very erratic around and around, and that's a lot of what I see of these very erratic movements, and the intensity of the light will get very bright for a moment, and then it'll fade out and maybe completely vanish, and then you'll see another one that's invisible appear next to it and take off. And so it wasn't one orb doing that, it was three. And there's usually always three. When you see one, there are two more and they're very close by. And yeah, so it's sometimes it appeared round, sometimes it appeared more linear, more it's hard to say. It just morphs. These things tumble. They appear to have maybe like a ribbon that is just making. It's hard to describe. These things make some strange movements. Very strange. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just a ball of light, and it exhibited every one of those characteristics, from very erratic movement to a round ball of light to an oblong stretched version of it at times, and you could see it vanish in a streak. And at one point we had this reddish yellow aura, like a comet almost, but it was more comical, and in the color it exhibited a tail behind it. And I've seen those do that many times. We call those streakers, which is just an orb showing off. It's what it's doing.
Anna described it, and I've seen one of these as well, and I was like, wow, this is the perfect description. She described it as a comet that you would see in a cartoon with the cartoonish tail. Is that fair?
Yeah, very much so.
Amazing. And these things were emitting light. They weren't reflecting light from anything from the ground.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what they do. They exhibit light, emit light.
Let's talk about the motion and behavior of them. You mentioned how these things were kind of moving around in a straight line. You mentioned the figure 8. The movement in terms of the acceleration and deceleration, how would you characterize that? And have you seen anything of terrestrial origin, like a prosaic drone, perform in that same way?
No, there's nothing that we have can perform like these things do, and it's just hard to describe, because about every kind of movement you can think of, from sitting still to very fast acceleration to extreme movement, like it'll turn and go back the other way, and then I mean, it's just no telling. And we have a lot of video of this type of thing that nobody can describe or explain. How not just that, but I have tons of video of others very similar to it. It's just amazing.
Yeah, truly. And we played earlier the video of what Sarah Gamm was able to catch on her film. And I'm curious, did you hear anything or notice any effects on your cell phone or the environment?
No, I didn't. Other than the feeling I've got, I get this connection that happens that it's a total different feeling. I don't know how to explain it, but when it appears like that, it sends a signal to me that I recognize, and that's how I'm able to do this. It's a connection that it's not only visible, but it's also telepathic. And with all that comes in, this feeling comes. It's like, I don't know if I recognize that telepathic connection, and it causes that feeling and anticipation of what's about to happen. But either way, I feel it, this sense of joy, and I hear it in advance in a way that it's the only way it comes. You got to be connected to it. A lot of people see this, but they're not connected. They don't know how to interact with it. Even though they believe in it, and they've learned that it's real, then you can begin to see it. But to develop that kind of connection to where you can ask it to come over the Capitol building is a little bit different, far more advanced. It's 18 years of me doing this.
I was about to ask, is this something that you think you've developed as kind of a skill over a period of time? It's not something that you've been able to do the whole time, correct?
No. I witnessed it from the very beginning, and I never could. I could see it all the time, but I couldn't share it. But after about 5 years, things I write about it in my book. A change happened, and from that point forward, I was able to share it with anyone. And yeah, so I've honed that skill over all these years, and it's a telepathic skill. A lot of it, you see it. It's there for us all. We just got to recognize it and understand.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate you sharing your story. This is, I think, one of the most fascinating things about this, and we will be interviewing Erik Zidek next, is I think when you watch this episode, it is crystal clear everyone had pretty much the exact same experience and had similar words in describing it. And that was one of the reasons why on this show I wanted to interview everyone separately as opposed to together as a group, so everyone can really sort of share what their personal experience was of this anomalous stuff happening over the Capitol. But it's really interesting, and it's also interesting too that this occurred the day before the UAP hearing. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was a clear message. Nothing happens by coincidence with this phenomena. And, the next morning they're releasing videos of we're shooting at this thing. And a Hellfire missile just glances off, right? But the night before it kind of said, hey, you have no control over us. We can invade your capital at any time we want. And that's what it did. And that's not the message. It's not threatening. It's just showing us that we have no power whatsoever, and we shouldn't be shooting at it.
Yeah.
I mean, at all. Right?
I couldn't agree with you more on that. It was a former Navy pilot, Ryan Graves, who said it's not a good idea to shoot at things that you don't know what its intent is, what its capability is, and and that doesn't send a message of peace when you're trying to shoot it down.
Right. It's trying to help us, not harm us, is what it's doing.
Excellent. Well, Mr. Bledsoe, thank you so much for joining us, and would love to have you back on the show for an extended interview. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I absolutely love your book. I recommend it to anyone watching the show right now, but would love to have you on to share more of your life story with this phenomenon.
I'd be glad to. Just give me a call and we'll make it happen.
The similarities are shocking. And again, these aren't run-of-the-mill tourists. They're accomplished professionals, current and former government scientists and private sector experts. And as I've said on this show before, I've seen these anomalous orbs above my home in LA more than a dozen times with family and friends watching. And as a matter of fact, just 2 nights ago, 2 orbs appeared a few thousand feet overhead. So if you just open your mind, step outside, and just take the time to stare up at night, and even during the day, you will be amazed at what shows up. Truly. Okay, folks, if you liked this show, you're going to love this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and if you enjoy the channel, hit subscribe and tell your friends about The Good Trouble Show. See you next time.